Welcome to Conservative Voices Talking Points. Gentry, let's start with you. The topic of the moment on everyone's mind is Afghanistan. Why don't you take it away?
Well, of course, after 20 years in Afghanistan, I think there's been broad consensus through the last several administrations that it was time to start bringing our personnel home. I think, of course, the news of the day is the unmitigated disaster that is the Biden withdrawal, maybe the Biden retreat. When you pull the military out, you leave weapons of war on the battlefield, and you do all of that before you have gotten American personnel, American civilians, and those Afghanis who collaborated with us and helped our forces over the years. I don't know that there is any justification for that, and so that's where we're at today. The evacuation is ongoing, but there are a hell of a lot of questions that this administration will have to answer in the coming days.
Yeah. We're hearing hostage crisis, we're hearing slavery, we're hearing executions. Eric, talk to us about what you know is going on from a getting Americans home standpoint.
It's been really hard to watch President Biden this entire week. I've watched, rarely do I do this, but I've watched really every press conference that he's given. I've watched him lie to me, lie to the American people in every single one of these cases. And then the mainstream media, it takes them another 2 days to really go through all of the lies and mistruths that he shared in this rosy world of this being good. And then yesterday, we have the 13 Marines killed. I'm tired of it. And I think America is absolutely tired of it. It's hard to watch him up there too. Watching yesterday, I mean, I'm not trying to point fingers and say that he's got problems, but it looks like he does have problems, and I'm talking beyond just his policies and his failed, weak leadership in getting out of Afghanistan. I'm looking at him, and I don't think he knows what he's doing or where he's at, for that matter. In each of the press conferences this week, I have felt the same way, and I can't help but say it.
So speaking of pointing fingers, Rob, that's exactly what President Biden did. He pointed a finger directly at Trump, which is no surprise. He's been doing it quite some time, through the election cycle, through now as president for 8 months. Talk a little bit about the blame game that's been going on.
Well, I think we're all consider the Biden blaming Trump as par for the course. I would categorize it not so much as a withdrawal, but I would categorize it as a surrender. We've been there 20 years. There hasn't been a U.S. casualty in the past 10 years. And the way that Biden said was the choice of his generals, I don't buy. There's been war for 5,000 years. I would be hard pressed to believe that the generals in our military suggested to Biden that shut down the airfield, Bagram Air Base, take all of our guys out, and let the civilians fend for themselves.
And leave the weapons behind.
And leave the weapons, just in case their AK aren't working properly, right? To me, it's sickening. I was telling these guys earlier today, driving in here, watching the news last night, I got scared really for the very, very first time about leadership in the United States and how we're all stuck with a decision, right, wrong, or indifferent. He's the man, but there's nothing we can do. And it was a scary feeling, like, there are people dying. We are watching it. And we then had to listen to this guy tell us this is the only possible way he could do that. That's just not true. It's not true. So, pointing the fingers, that's all he can do because of this disastrous surrender. There's nothing good about it. It's disgusting.
There's another piece of the blame game that is noteworthy to me, having spent some time in Washington, D.C. What's noteworthy to me is that there have been no firings. No one at the Pentagon, no one in the intelligence community, no one in the defense community, no blame. Why might that be? And the reason, Rob, I think is related to what you've already said, which is that he did not follow their advice. This president did not follow their advice. There is no general, there is no intelligence chief, there is no defense analyst, down to junior level people, that would have recommended leaving weapons of war on the battlefield.
These are the same people that ran Benghazi. The same players that worked for Obama, that ran us, our foreign affairs into the dirt, they're planning this one. This is exactly like Benghazi, but longer.
So some of the reports are upwards of 85 billion, that's billion with a B, $85 billion worth of weapons, equipment, tanks just left behind. Eric, where does the buck stop? Because our president says the buck stops with him.
How could President Biden, be so confident in everything he told us in July and everything he told us at the beginning of August, and have the country completely fail in a matter of just days with no help, and just the fact, just a common sense, any common sense person, and one thing in all of my conversations I've had this week with all of the folks that I've talked about on this topic, and it's been a hot topic this week, is how can you take your military out first and not take care of your embassy, your staff, all of those who have given up their lives and helped the United States for the last 20 years, of which we have promised to help them, all of that to be completely wiped away and washed away, and now you see the Taliban carrying our weapons, wearing our masks, wearing our uniforms, for goodness sakes. It's ridiculous. There is no excuse. There's no way our military could have been that, ignorant or stupid. There really is no way. I think the buck absolutely stops with President Biden. He has said it himself. I blame him for all of this. Every president knows the challenges of Afghanistan, and they have had to make the hard choices and things to do that. He made rush decisions, obviously not listening to the generals or the military, and has completely screwed this whole thing up. All I can do is pray for our country and our soldiers and our leaders right now to make the right decision.
Let's talk about the humanitarian need in Afghanistan right now. There's a debate, right? Is it 1,500? Is it 15,000? There's still a lot of people that need to be out of that country for reasons due to forced slavery, executions, maiming, and just all kinds of terrible, terrible scenarios. Verify for me if this is true. Our government gave the Taliban the names of Americans in that country.
So they could get through the checkpoint charge.
Right. On its face, it sounds like a good idea, right? Let these people through. We're seeing what's happening to those people, right? Talk a little bit about what our country can do at this point from a humanitarian need.
Just the biggest thing to me is President Biden has legitimized the Taliban, which is a terrorist group and referred to as a terrorist group really in most, in all of our allied countries in the world. And now they're giving the legitimacy and they're asking them and they're working with them and they're giving this terrorist group our names.
Meanwhile,
God help us.
They identify MAGA supporters as on the terrorist list as potential threats against America. That's how insane this is. It's all backwards. And this can't just happen by accident. This has got to be a plan. Because if
Twitter bans President Trump, but allows the PR Taliban and their spokesman to do and say whatever he wants?
If you were trying to bring down or align yourself with the enemy, this is exactly what you would do if you were in Biden's position. The Chinese are moving in. Do you know, and everything's about electric, and I know I go down that rabbit hole, but lithium batteries are what power electric cars. Afghanistan controls 90% of the rare earth minerals that are needed to make lithium batteries. It's true. So,
Afghanistan or China?
Afghanistan. China's coming to Afghanistan.
They're coming into Afghanistan.
They're buying the mining rights to mine all their minerals. And that's what it takes to get that done, the lithium batteries. I believe that and this isn't conspiracy, this is just looking at the world as it is. I was there, I went to China, I saw their push for electric cars as they burn coal, black coal, to make electricity. It doesn't make any sense, yet they control our power, our energy now, if it's going to be based off electric batteries, electric cars. The electrification of the U.S. car market started 10 years ago when Obama was in office, because that's how long it takes to switch over a platform that's been a gas burner platform, and to go down this path seems insane to me, absolutely insane, unless you're Joe Biden. How he can square this with anything is beyond me. I don't know.
So he made a statement just this week that those that forced Americans into harm or harmed Americans, killed any Americans or Afghans that were collaborating with Americans over the last 20 years. His statement was, "You will be hunted down." Gentry, what are your expectations?
I don't think any of America's global adversaries believe that. I don't think there's a single American adversary on the face of the planet that fears the Biden presidency. And he's making that worse every day that goes by. One of the consequences, I think, long-term consequences of giving these names over is not just the humanitarian crisis today, though that's bad enough. What happens the next time we need help on the ground? What happens the next time we need human intelligence resources? Let's not forget, we did not choose to go to Afghanistan. Afghanistan harbored al-Qaeda, who came here. They picked this fight, and we took the fight over there. I think, for all of the things we can argue about in the George W. Bush legacy, one thing he got right is if there's going to be bleeding, the bleeding ought to happen in the desert, not in New York City. Yep. And we've bled him for 20 years. Yep. And the people who helped have now been abandoned to the Taliban. So the next time American credibility is on the line, the next time we need people of goodwill to provide human intelligence to protect American lives from global terrorism, guess what's going to happen? It will not be available. That's the Biden legacy.
So how can this man sign the death certificate for Americans? How can he do that? How can he say, yeah, we're going to leave and people will die? How does he have that right? Shouldn't that be against the law if you know that someone's going to die and you do nothing about it? Because the Germans, the French are sending in their special ops to get their folks out, and we have the best in the world, and they're hand-tied. Why? Why is that? Why wouldn't you allow those folks, our operators over there, to go save Americans? Why wouldn't you do that?
Well, if you believed in America, you would.
Well, you would. But if you believe in the Chinese, because the Chinese have you by the short hairs, that's what you do.
So Biden's sticking to this date, right? August 31st, is that what it is?
Repeatedly.
Repeatedly,
right.
Despite everything that's happened.
Of his own making.
Right. So what's the logic behind keeping this date? Is it merely because of an agreement with the Taliban, or is there something else that we're?
He says the 20-year war has to come to an end, right? And I'm the only guy that can do it, and everybody else has it, and I'm going to do it. Well, that's this is how he ends the war.
And most all of us agree it was time, but it's certainly what we all realize, and what he absolutely takes the buck for is the way that we went out, which was completely his decision. And I think we're all convinced that he did not listen to his generals and he did not listen to the military. I don't know that, but I think we're all pretty confident that there's no way that anyone could have screwed it up this bad, this fast, and put Americans, our allies, at such risk as they've done in the last not even 2 weeks. I mean, it's completely been disintegrated.
Gentry, you talked about